We have some breaking news at the top of the hour for you. Chinese troops appear to be moving into North Korea, as our footage shows here. They're taking up defensive positions, and troops have been spotted engaging in training drills. Vehicles transporting what is likely weapons and other warfare materials have been spotted moving into Pyongyang. The demilitarized zone is more fortified than ever before, and all this would suggest is that war is on the horizon. China are taking part in this operation, but it seems they're helping North Korea, not shutting them down. We'll make sure to
This is a message broadcast at the request of the United States Department of Defense. The emergency alert system has been triggered to inform you of the ongoing situation in North Korea. Chinese troops are moving into North Korea on an unprecedented scale. However, we believe the Chinese are working with North Korea, as troops have been spotted working together. It is possible they are gearing for war, but senior military officials in the U.S. military believe it is a scare tactic. However, an attack on the U.S. is still a possibility. As such, you should begin to gather essential resources such as food, water, clothing, toiletries, a first aid kit, and a battery-powered radio with spare batteries. If you live in a metropolitan area, you should leave the area if possible. Major cities are likely targets, and there is no way to survive a nuclear explosion if you are in the vicinity of them. If you are not in a metropolitan area, you should determine which room in your home is most suited to surviving the weeks in which fallout is at its worst. It should ideally be the lowest and innermost room in your home. Should North Korea attack the U.S., all stations will broadcast an emergency message, and you should enter the innermost room in your home and build an inner refuge using non-flammable materials. You should remain in there for at least 14 days with your stockpile of supplies. Ensure your stockpile is equipped to last that long. To clarify, an attack on the U.S. from North Korea is unlikely. It is essential that you do not panic, as it will cause unnecessary chaos and disruption. If you require further information, go to usa.gov/emergency-info.
The emergency broadcast is completely backfired, really, with massive traffic jams on major highways as a result of thousands fleeing the U.S.'s largest cities, shortages of essential items due to panic buying, and an increase in crimes like theft and criminal damage. So far, the White House has not released a statement regarding the situation.
Well, Biden has well and truly put us on the brink of war. You missing Trump now? The man who put us on the path to peace with North Korea. And now the mainstream media's golden boy, Joe Biden, may have doomed this great nation to a fiery death.
Breaking news story. Biden calls North Korea playground bullies in what could be seen as pouring fuel on the very volatile fire that is North Korea. As we all know, channels were interrupted by an emergency broadcast saying people should be prepared for an attack on the U.S. An awful mistake from the Biden administration, as domestic chaos has increased exponentially and people are stockpiling essential resources and supply shortages are on the rise. Why did we need an ominous broadcast for this? It could have easily been left for news stations to do it themselves.
Biden has once again responded to the Chinese and North Korean military actions, saying they are a clear sign of intent and the U.S. will not tolerate such actions. However, polls show the nation does not appreciate what Biden is doing, with polling showing 97% of people think his actions are making the situation worse, and you can understand why. Millions of lives are under threat as nuclear war looms ever closer, and Biden seems to be trying to show strength and might, but it's pouring fuel on flames. Many have tried to convince Biden to de-escalate, but he's made his mind up.
China 北朝鮮からミサイルを発見しました。 このミサイルはおそらくテストですが、強化された建物にすぐに避難する必要があります。
We have detected a missile from North Korea. This missile is likely a test, but you should seek immediate shelter in a reinforced building.
The North Korea and China situation is heating up yet again with missile tests into the Sea of Japan. The Japanese J-Alert system was triggered and their missile defense systems were prepared for launch but were not used. Yet again, this marks another perilous advance in China and North Korea's military plans. We can only guess how much equipment and training the military beast that is China have given North Korea.
U.S. Department of Defense message dated 15th of the 5th, 21. FBI spies based in Beijing have obtained intel detailing an operation known as Operation Breaking Point. The operation gives a layout of Chinese and North Korean plans. According to the documents, China and North Korea will attack the United States and its allies in 2 days' time, using nuclear warheads on major U.S. cities and using biological and chemical weapons to wage war on mainland Europe. An unlikely but hopeful plan for China is to form an alliance with the Russian Federation in order to keep other global powers in line. China partnered with Russia would form an unstoppable military force and none of our allies would be willing to fight back. Mr. President, we believe the best option moving forward is to use preemptive strikes on major Chinese and North Korean cities and prevent them from being able to prepare for attacks on the U.S. While this may not prevent attacks on the U.S. completely, it will force their hand and they will be unable to properly plan their attacks. Mr. President, you will be escorted to your secure bunker shortly and you will decide our actions to deal with this situation. Thank you for listening.
Please stand by. The emergency alert system has been activated. Ensure your device is clearly audible. This is a message broadcast at the request of the U.S. Department of Defense and the White House. As of 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time today, we have fired preemptive strikes at the People's Republic of China and Democratic People's Republic of Korea. According to our information, the two nations were preparing to attack the U.S. mainland and her allies. In order to prevent this, the President authorized preemptive strikes in order to prevent them from attacking with any preparation. However, this does not mean the U.S. will not be attacked. Counter-strikes are still possible as we are unlikely to destroy all launch sites, but our actions mean they will have to attack on impulse. You are advised to prepare for attacks. Our previous broadcast means major cities have been partially evacuated. If you are still in major cities, especially on the West Coast, evacuate now. Police will aid in evacuation efforts. Public transport will transport people without their own vehicles. If you own your own vehicle, please abide by traffic laws. Reckless driving will increase the risk of accidents, and accidents on major highways will bring evacuation efforts to a standstill. If you are in rural areas, begin to construct your inner fallout shelter using non-flammable materials in your fallout room. Your fallout room should be the lowest and innermost room in your home, ideally without windows. If you do have windows, cover the windows using non-flammable materials both on the inside and outside. Move your essential resources into your fallout room. Fill containers with water now. Mains water will be unusable if strikes do occur as it will be contaminated with fallout. Ensure your battery-powered radio contains batteries and turn it on to receive information and updates specific to your local area. The U.S. military and government are working hard to ensure the U.S. remains as safe as possible and the threat of China and North Korea is kept to a minimum. Remain calm, take the necessary actions to keep you and your families safe, and remain alert for further information.
Nuclear strikes from North Korea have been detected. Seek immediate shelter. Evacuate now. Nuclear strikes from North Korea have been detected. Seek immediate shelter.
Nuclear strikes have been fired at the United States. Seek immediate shelter now. Strikes have been fired at the following locations: Los Angeles, San Diego, San Jose, San Francisco, and Fresno. If you are in these areas, evacuate now. If you do not have a vehicle, public transport will aid in evacuation efforts. If you are not in these cities, enter your inner fallout refuge. Ensure you have essential materials, such as food, water, medicine, toiletries, and clothing is to last a minimum of 14 days, and a battery-powered radio with spare batteries. Other cities on the West Coast are being evacuated in case strikes are launched at those cities. You must enter your fallout refuge. Fallout are radioactive particles created by a nuclear explosion that travels for hundreds of miles. Significant exposure to fallout causes acute radiation poisoning followed by death. An inner fallout refuge is required as it will increase the number of physical objects the fallout particles have to pass through to reach you. You should have already lined your fallout room, and any windows and doors, both on the inside and out, and your fallout shelter, with non-flammable materials. If you have not done so, do it now. Should anybody die from fallout, take the body outside of the inner refuge and leave it on the opposite side of the room. Cover it with a blanket or cloth if possible. Once the 14 days have passed, you will be able to take the body outside and dispose of it properly. Pets should be euthanized. They require additional resources, and you cannot afford to waste them. Euthanize your pets as painlessly as possible, and take them outside. Once the 14 days have passed, you will be able to dispose of the body properly. Radios will inform you when it is safe to go outside. Until you are told, do not go outside. Fallout sticks to clothing, and by going outside you endanger yourself and your families. Strikes will impact within the next 25 minutes.
Nuclear strikes from North Korea have been detected. Seek immediate shelter. Evacuate now. Nuclear strikes from North Korea have been detected. Seek immediate shelter. Evacuate now. Nuclear strikes from North Korea have been detected. Seek immediate shelter. Evacuate now. Nuclear strikes from North Korea.
从美国发现了核打击，立即撤离北京。罢工将在1小时内到达北京。核打击会导致极高的热量、光线和强烈的冲击波爆炸。核打击还会产生尘埃，尘埃是放射性粒子，可以传播数百英里，辐射会杀死您。如果您不在北京，但在市区250英里范围内，请使用随时可用的材料在您的房屋中建一个避难所，确保您拥有必要的材料，最好是食物、水和卫生用品，已在庇护所中生存14天。中国政府祝您好运，谢谢，再见。
The U.S. Department of Defense has authorized this civil danger warning. Nuclear strikes have been fired at the city of Chicago from China and North Korea. You are advised to evacuate immediately. Anyone within a 5-mile radius of the city should evacuate now. There is no way to survive if you are within the radius of the blast. If you have a vehicle, evacuate now. Radio stations will inform you of the location of federally set up refuge points where you will be provided with food, water and shelter. If you do not have a vehicle, public transport will evacuate citizens. If you do have a car, follow traffic laws as accidents will hold up evacuation efforts and may prevent people from leaving the city in time. The U.S. military estimates the strikes will hit within 25 to 30 minutes. Nuclear exchanges are occurring between the U.S. and the Chinese and North Korean partnership. Various launch sites in North Korea have been destroyed, as has Beijing. The UN has not responded to these exchanges. Other nations have not responded to avoid attacks from China and North Korea. The U.S. has reached out to France and the U.K., but have been informed that they do not wish to involve themselves in this crisis.
Nuclear strikes have been fired at Miami from China. Evacuate now. Seek shelter immediately. Anyone within a 5-mile radius of Miami is at risk of death from the extreme heat, light and blast of the warhead. Anyone within a 25-mile radius should also evacuate as fallout will be so potent that an inner refuge will not suffice. Evacuations are currently taking place, being assisted by the police and the National Guard. Temporary refuge points have been set up in the state of Florida and directions to these points will be shared via radio and text message services. It is vital that you do not go to these refuge points if you are within a safe radius of the city and have supplies of your own. These refuge points are designed for people without supplies or shelter, and to use these points when you have supplies and shelter of your own would be to deny someone who needs these services. The U.S. are deploying counterstrikes at various Chinese cities. Major nuclear exchanges are now occurring.
Nuclear exchanges are occurring between the U.S., China, and Korea. Major cities have suffered nuclear attacks. China have suffered attacks on Shanghai, Beijing, Tianjin, Shenzhen, and Guangzhou. The U.S. have suffered strikes in various major cities, such as Los Angeles, Chicago, Phoenix, and Houston. Figures detailing the number of deaths and injuries do not yet exist, but are both estimated to be in the millions. Various world powers have not commented on the situation. However, some nations have evacuated their most populous cities. It is unlikely that they will involve themselves in this situation.
Message dated 19th of the 5th, 21. With nuclear exchanges continuing between the three parties, normal life has now collapsed in all three nations. Estimates for the death toll puts the total at 22.9 million in the United States, 79.2 million for China and 900,000 for North Korea. Our military has used computer models to determine that the U.S. death toll could reach 75 million by early July. To prevent this, we must reduce the number of strikes being fired at the U.S. We have determined that the contingency warhead, aptly named Armageddon, must be deployed. It was built in 2015 to be used only for situations exactly like this. North Korea is the target, as they are the weakest link. Mr. President, once again the choice is yours.
우리는 미국의 핵 공격을 감지했습니다. 즉시 대피소를 찾으십시오. 파업은 앞으로 몇 분 안에 평양 지역을 강타할 것으로 예상됩니다. 즉시 도망가는 것이 좋습니다. 우리의 영광스러운 지도자 김정은은 평양에 있지 않으며 완벽하게 안전합니다. 우리는 두려움과 의로움으로 미국 정권을 반격하고 억압적이고 역겨운 미국 정권을 물리칠 것입니다. 대피할 수 없는 사람들은 당신의 죽음이 미국에 대한 우리의 영광스러운 복수를 불러일으킬 것이라는 것을 알고 당신의 마지막 순간의 위로를 구합니다.
我们非常遗憾地报告， 我们在朝鲜的朋友被杀害了。美国在首都发射了一场强大的核弹头，摧毁了它。数百万人丧生，基础设施严重受损。结果，他们的许多高级官员自杀了。他们的领导人和我们的伟大盟友金正恩也自杀了。他们说，在他们的处境中没有生存的希望。他希望按照自己的意愿离开这个世界。朝鲜不能从现在开始支持我们，我们必须迅速做出反应。我们不知道美国向平壤发射的威力强大的弹头是同类武器中唯一的一种还是一部分。我们已经准备好了自己的核武库，我们已准备好50吨重的。
Nuclear strikes have been fired at New York City. Flee immediately. Strikes will reach the city within the next few minutes. Nuclear strikes create a large explosion that will destroy everything in its path. If you are caught in this blast, you will be vaporized. It also creates intense light. You will be temporarily or permanently blinded if you look at this light. It creates a shockwave blast, which will shatter windows within miles of the blast site. Fallout is the final and most deadly component of nuclear strikes. Fallout will spread for hundreds of miles. Failure to shelter in a small, enclosed area in a low-lying central area will result in fallout poisoning. Significant exposure to fallout will lead to death. You must flee now. Failure to do so will result in certain death. China are believed to be the culprits of this attack. We can assure you that we will strike back with full force to defeat their regime.
这是香港政府的广播。我们非常悲痛地报告政府解散。在对中国大陆进行多次核袭击后，该地区遭受了毁灭性的影响，可能导致650万人死亡。我们建议所有幸存者寻找农村地区。城市已经崩溃，您将找不到任何用处。寻找一个小的农村地区，并建立一个庇护所，让您可以过上可持续的生活。建议您种庄稼来维持您和您的家人的生活。中国大陆混乱不堪，人民一无所知，不知道发生了什么事。正常社会正处于崩溃的边缘。估计已经发射了1200枚弹头。烟雾几乎肯定会造成核冬天，全球气温下降的迹象已经显现。不幸的是，这将使农作物的生长更加困难。科学模型表明，到2030年，多达一半的人口可能因核冬天而死亡。烟尘会阻挡太阳的光线长达25年。其他国家避免了全球性核袭击，但正在应对大规模骚乱和恐慌。许多国家未能控制住局势，即将到来的核冬天将摧毁这些国家。这是我们分道扬镳的地方。香港政府祝你一切顺利，再见。
It is with great sorrow that we report the collapse of the United States of America. After continuous nuclear strikes at virtually every major population center, much of the nation is in ruins. Millions have died from the explosions directly, and many more will have died from the fallout. Fallout is so potent in the northeast U.S. that approximately 5 minutes of fallout exposure yields a 90% chance of death. These areas will be uninhabitable for an indefinite period of time. Areas with a lower population density are the safest areas for human habitation, as they will have suffered from fewer strikes and as a result, less fallout. However, the nuclear exchanges have created so much smoke and ash that they have now blocked sunlight. As a result, global temperatures will plummet and crops will become significantly harder to grow. Global temperatures may not return to a normal level for as long as 25 years. It is advised that you build some sort of home in a rural area with natural resources such as wood nearby. Ensure the area has a water source. Ideally, you want your shelter to be as small and as thick as possible, as it provides better insulation, so less energy is required for warmth. Only certain crops will be suitable for growth. Plants like broccoli, sprouts, cabbage, cauliflower, collards, green onions, leeks, parsnips, radishes, and turnips are ideal as they are frost-resistant. Surviving scientists in Europe have been flown to an undisclosed location in order to develop frost-resistant versions of everyday crops that are easy to grow. However, this will take time. Until then, you will have only the support of those that you know. No government will be able to support you. Messages like these are being broadcast nationwide. The U.S. government has collapsed. American society has collapsed, but we believe this is only temporary, and that despite these challenging times, the American people will persevere, and when the day that we can return to normality arrives, we will rebuild the damaged brick by brick and restore America to its former glory. Until then, we say goodbye. People of Sir Wendell, we wish you good luck and goodbye.